So welcome back, everybody, to the Ops Desk podcast. I am Paul Morrow, and today I'm really excited. We've got a great guest. We got Rich Staropoli. Rich, 25 years with the Secret Service. Nobody knows more about it in public life than he does. And full disclosure, Rich and I were talking recently on a radio show, and he told me some things that were really quite alarming about what's going on with the service, the direction that they're taking. And this is stuff that really needs to be broken in the news. People have to hear about this. So we're really excited to have him on. Rich, welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Thank you, Inspector. And I am super excited to be here as well. And I certainly appreciate the kind words in that introduction. I could not have written a better one myself. So thank you.
Well, listen, it's well deserved. And I can tell, as we say, as I've said to you in the past, I think when you were on the radio, there was a saying among the cops when you're talking about somebody, we say, this guy's the police. Which meant, you know what, he's the real deal. You can work with them. Rich qualifies. So let's get right to it.
Sure.
25 years with the service. You were a spokesperson for DHS, got all his federal experience. You have a wealth of experience in the private sector at very high levels. And I got to ask you, you also did presidential protection, which is key. Not everybody in the service does it, right? So you were on that detail. So you were involved in a lot of stuff, man. And so I got to press you for your insights, because let me go to the first thing that really struck me when you and I talked recently. You told me that the Secret Service today is in no better shape, and in fact, maybe worse than it was when the Butler incident happened, where the guy took the shot, Crooks took the shot at Donald Trump. You got to tease that out for us, man.
Well, I got to tell you, and one of the reasons I say that is you look at two incidents that have gone on recently with the new director. One of which caught President Trump off guard, where he was questioned on board Air Force One as to why the Secret Service was still providing protective detail to crackhead Hunter Biden and Ashley Biden. And he had no idea. And he actually said that. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'll check. Either the current director, who he appointed, Sean Curran, wasn't aware of this, which is a problem in itself when your underlings don't tell the director, or was aware of it and just didn't see fit to tell the White House. You know, what is this guy thinking right there? And of course, the second issue was the one that just occurred recently, where the entire world was under the impression that the former director, this guy Ron Rowe, and everyone saw this guy's performance before Congress, was under the impression that following the debacle of his testimony, he resigned, he retired, whatever, he just went away. Well, it turns out he didn't go away. The current director, Sean Curran, allowed him to remain on the Secret Service payroll to finish out his 25 years to retirement, and actually had him as a paid special advisor to the director of the Secret Service. I mean, what is this guy thinking? Your job was to get in there and completely reinstill the public's confidence in the capabilities of the Secret Service, let alone reinstill the confidence of the rank and file in the leadership of the Secret Service. And you go and pull two moves like that, and that's just two examples. There's many more, but the confidence I think that the rank and file have, I certainly have, in the current leadership of the Secret Service is pretty abysmal right now.
All right, let me put a fine point on it, because we're going to tease all of that out even further, man. But let me just ask you a very blunt question.
Yeah.
Is Donald Trump in danger?
I think he's in danger just because of the numbers. There are simply not enough Secret Service agents to adequately protect the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who is the number one target.
Oh, they want him.
Narco terrorist and every radical fundamentalist group in the world, but of the Democratic Party. Look at what's going on with the mayor of Chicago. He's calling for a violent overthrow of the federal government, as well as, let's take up arms against the National Guard. You've got Tim Walz, who's doing a dance the last couple of days, praying that something happens to the current president of the United States.
And the crazies hear this. They see that, they feel like they're validated. You got a guy at Tim Walz's level who is saying, oh, I thought maybe Trump was dead. I was disappointed. Don't worry about it. We can keep our hopes up. Or whatever nonsense he said. They get that message. The service investigates threats against the president. You must have been in the middle of those. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they receive those messages from prominent people?
Well, you know better than anyone. It doesn't take much to push one of these whack jobs over the edge.
Right.
I was in New York. I came back to New York after the president's detail in 2003, post-September 11th, specifically because, look, I'm from New York. I wanted to get back to New York and see what's going on here. I took over two things. One was the Joint Terrorist Task Force, and I ended up, being the intermediary between the FBI, the CIA station in New York, and the NYPD, having to deal with all their issues that were going on. But the other thing I ran was the division that handled all the threat cases, right? I've interviewed hundreds of people, as have all of the people that work for me, over the years with regards to threats. And every one of these people will tell you, when you ask them, what was it that pushed you over the edge to do this? They said, well, I got a message from someone. And in this case, the people that are delivering the messages are these woke, liberal, elected Democratic officials. They know what they're saying. They need to be held responsible for what they're doing because they know what they're setting into motion, but they don't care and they're just doing it.
Well, we had, let's just expand on that piece alone a little bit here. We had two instances, actually three recently, where Washington, they bring these cases in Washington, D.C., they get venue there because the president's there. You had that moron lawyer from DOJ that threw the ham sandwich at the federal agent, hits him in the chest. Okay, they couldn't get an indictment on that at the grand jury. But we've now had, since then, two threat cases that they couldn't get past the grand jury. Now, to be clear, look, should they necessarily be major felony cases? Somebody who seems to be having some mental health issues, whatever, spouting off online, should they necessarily evolve into major felony cases? I don't know. But the point is, neither does the grand jury know. That's not the purpose of the grand jury, to hold a mini trial. The level of certitude you need at the grand jury is so low. That's why the old joke, you can indict a ham sandwich. So the idea that we lost two now threat cases that Jeanine Pirro was talking about today on the network, that they didn't get indictments after one of them was really bad. I mean, she's talking about how she's going to go at Trump, what she's going to do. She's going to disembowel him. They couldn't get it past a D.C. grand jury, which is the most, by the way, the bluest jurisdiction in the country is Washington, D.C. So this is what we're up against. So my point then is this. Let me close it with a question for you. To expand this. Really what you got to do is stop these things before they happen, because we're not getting any help from the judicial system because it's so weighted against Donald Trump and the right because of just all of this woke stuff, not only in the grand jury, but with the judges. Okay, so that means you got to stop this stuff before it happens. And that's where the service is so crucial. How many bodies is the service currently down?
Well, here's the thing, right? We don't even know what the number should be because we've got the current leadership of the Secret Service has zero comment. Listen, 10 years ago, maybe that worked where we're not going to comment on anything for national security reasons or the numbers are classified. But given what's happened here over the course of the last year, you had the president shot in Butler, you had the incident in Florida. The entire world saw this. Wouldn't you think the director of the Secret Service, who was put in there, right, by President Trump, would be out before the cameras talking about how they're doing all these great things because the world's watching? But the guy has no comment. So to answer your question about the numbers, we think we're down about 50%. So if you start with, we had about 3,500 agents, they're probably down to about less than 2,000. Let's call it that. And let me put it in perspective for you as well as all the viewers here. We'll take an NYPD class. So from the time you apply to become a police officer to the time they say, okay, Monday morning report. When you report to the police academy, there could be 750, 1,000 people in that academy class.
That's right.
The most recent class was the biggest one in a decade, had about 1,100 people.
Right.
But and it's similar that you'll see all over the large metropolitan cities, right? They have very large pools of people they put through their academy. And they can use that large pool of people to replace people that leave through attrition, resignations, transferring to other agencies, retiring.
Always. You lose guys in the academy that can't do the run, whatever. Yeah, definitely.
So you plan for that. By contrast, a Secret Service class, so from the time you apply to the time they say report to the Secret Service training facility in D.C. Monday morning, has 24 people in it. That's it. So and it takes 6 months to be trained up as a full-blown Secret Service agent when you're assigned to an office. On average, they run about 6 classes a year. Do the math. That's 144 people. Normally, you lose 2-3 people during a class. Somebody can't shoot, can't handle the PT.
Yeah, they break their leg or whatever it happens. Yeah.
Whatever hell happens. So you're looking at about 125 people. How are you going to replace all these people that have left with you're only hiring 125 people a year? The numbers simply can't keep up with the amount of people that are leaving. And why are people leaving? Because for the last 5-6 years, under the leadership of the former director, Kim Cheadle, and everyone saw her performance as well.
Sure.
Her entire thesis was built on the woke DEI policies. All she was concerned about was hiring women and DEI people who, quite frankly, couldn't even come close to doing the job. That's all they wanted to do. So what does that tell the rank and file? I'm going to leave. Here's another thing that no one really talks about. Every Secret Service agent has a top secret clearance. What's the value in having that clearance?
Yeah.
I can easily transfer it to any other federal agency or any department in the world. They would love to have me. And that's what's happening at the Secret Service. People have had enough of this. When they lose confidence in the leadership and management, as you know, coming from the police department.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And the supervisors aren't backing them and aren't even qualified to hold those positions. The rank and file have had enough and they'll transfer over. That's why so many Secret Service agents have become U.S. postal inspectors, FBI agents, which you never saw that.
No, right? No, you would not.
ATF agents. Yeah. I've heard stories of Secret Service agents going back to their local police departments and state police to do that.
That I've never seen.
Wow. That is a huge, huge problem. And people don't even realize that. And again, it's just not being adequately managed by the leadership of the Secret Service.
Well, it's terrible, terrible leadership. For instance, now I'm going back, whatever it is, 20 years. When I remember when I got my first TS clearance, I was told at the time, again, allow for inflation here. I was told at the time it was $10,000 to $12,000 is what it cost in terms of man hours to do all the investigations and all of the stuff they do, which we won't go into. So it was $10,000 to $12,000 again, 25 years ago, whatever, when I got my first clearance, whatever it is now, 20 years, I don't even like to think about it. But the idea that then guys are leaving that and going either not only to other agencies, but going back to jobs where you don't need a clearance, state police, local cops, you're not going to need the clearance, so you just completely wasted that. All right, let's take as a predicate here, we're down 1,000 agents, which sounds like what it is. You didn't lose them all overnight. There was a case of attrition under Cheadle, and I assume during the Biden administration where there was just a feeling of malaise, but also, and we heard about this relative to the investigation into what happened in Butler, which we'll talk about, but that they are overtasked. These guys are working from what I talked to guys. I used to talk to guys on detail. I worked with a ton of Secret Service guys, by the way, on the details. You in General Assembly, you talk to them, you're standing around, you're like a statue, you start to bullshit. And the guys would tell me, I haven't been home in 3 weeks. I haven't seen my wife. I got to call her tonight. I can't. Oh my God, I got to here. I got to go there. I got to chase the congressman's wife. So how much of it is just burnout? Are they working these guys 7 days a week? What's going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's very much so burnout. If I said to any member of the general public, tell me who the Secret Service protects, they're going to say the president, vice president, first family. Maybe you get about 7 or 8 people. In actuality, during the Biden years, the Secret Service had almost 60 protective details going on.
Wow.
The Biden administration, by a stroke of a pen, auto pen as the case may be, right, turned the Secret Service into an armed limousine service.
Yeah.
You had details on, the binder, Karine Jean-Pierre. You had the deputy national security advisor. You had people, Mayorkas's, third removed from the secretary.
This is the stuff I heard. They were on everybody.
Ridiculous. It was nothing more than concierge service. But again, that shows a lack of foresight and planning on the part of the leadership, because none of these people that are in these positions as assistant directors or deputy assistant directors, and there's 16 of those combined. What exactly a deputy assistant director does, aside from get coffee for the assistant director, it's kind of a made-up position that the service created so they can promote their buddies into these high-ranking positions. They've never done any of these details, so they have no idea what's involved with this. So they kept saying, sure, we'll turn all these details on, instead of saying, nope, not going to do it. And that's what leads primarily to the burnout, let alone the big assignments like, these national special security events like the United Nations meeting, the Super Bowl, the World Series, things the Secret Service. Listen, you don't have 40,000 guys. This is not the behemoth of the NYPD where we can cover everything. And it gets ridiculous, and nobody wants to put up with that. I can make the same amount of money and have a better quality of life as a BATF agent.
And, it's funny. I want to go to this national security event thing that you bring up, because that is such a crucial point that people don't realize. So the head of DHS, that's the person who designates various things as national security events. And certain ones are just kind of by default are going to be national security events, as in DNC, the RNC, the Super Bowl, as you mentioned, is one of the few sporting events, and so on and so forth. Most of it is public. Some of it is not. Okay. I want to go to something that I know is going to light you up, and this will be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Cheadle is in Aspen
Yep.
before the Butler incident, and she's there that Saturday.
Hmm.
Donald Trump is in Butler, Pennsylvania to give that speech in the big open field.
Yep.
And on Sunday, he's going to the RNC, which
Yep.
starts the next day because realistically, the preliminaries start the night before, and then Monday's the big kickoff. All right. It's designated as a national security event by Mayorkas. Cheadle is in Aspen that Saturday. That we know. She's probably there before it, but we know she was there for the shooting. All right. Here's the thing that gets me, and it just makes my head spin. She was scheduled to speak at that Aspen Security Conference, which everybody gets invited to, and only the bosses go, and they go there, they drink the wine, they eat the catered meals and all that bullshit.
Right.
Nothing gets done. Everybody talks about, hey, when are you going to retire? Get me a job. All
That's
right.
right.
So she's there. She's giving some nonsensical speech on Wednesday. She's there Saturday.
Yep.
That tells me she's there the whole week at the Aspen Security Conference on our time and our dime, likely with her whole entourage. God knows what it cost during a designated national security event. Do I have any of those facts wrong?
No, you are dead on accurate. I had nothing to add, nothing to say or correct you on. That was the perfect recap of exactly what went on.
Well, let me ask you this then, to press you a little bit.
Yeah.
Did Mayorkas have to sign off on, like on the NYPD? I always have to analogize to the NYPD because I was in federal task forces, but like, you really didn't have to report up there. Sometimes you had to deal with the federal bosses just because something went sideways or something got very heavy. But for the most part, my report backwards was and up was the NYPD. So, did Mayorkas, who designated this event, at some point he had to scratch a piece of paper that said, okay, yeah, it's going to be a national security event. Did he sign off on one of his main quarterbacks for such a thing disappearing to Aspen? Or does she just get up, fire up the Secret Service plane, get her entourage, get on the plane and go, and he doesn't know where she is? Either one of those is a problem. But how did it go, you think?
No, that's exactly how it went. She was off doing her own, tour of the nation, if not the world, on the taxpayer's dime with her entourage. Perfectly put. This lady traveled like she was a rap star. Unacceptable. Had no idea what's involved with.
She had a posse with her. This one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She's got assistants and executive. Lady, you're not the CEO of General Motors. What are you doing here?
Right.
You're a government employee.
Right.
Yeah, you got a fancy title, but you're still working for the taxpayer.
Sure.
As far as Mayorkas goes, listen, this guy was so out of touch. He had no idea. He was doing his own thing. I'm surprised he wasn't in Aspen.
Out to lunch. Where was he for this whole thing? He's never had an answer for any of that stuff. I don't get it.
Because none of these people cared. All they were concerned about is what's in it for them. And we see the same thing now with Pritzker and Johnson in Chicago. You want to know what they're doing all day long? If it suits them, that's what they're doing. That's exactly what was going on during the administration of the Biden crime family. All these people, and that includes every member of the cabinet and some of the Joint Chiefs, these guys were just doing whatever the hell they wanted, running wide open, making it as lucrative for them as possible. And it's as simple as that. I wish I had a really clandestine answer for you. No, she booked the flight. She took her entourage and went out to Aspen to drink wine and recruit women. And that's exactly what she was there to do.
Shameful.
And
yeah. What was actually
no reason to go to Butler? Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then she said she tried this. She half-heartedly tried. She said some nonsense like, well, I was going to leave the conference. Now she's there for the weekend.
Yep.
I was going to leave and go to the RNC when it started on Monday, then fly back to Aspen and give my speech, and then fly back to the RNC. Obviously, that didn't pass the giggle test, and ultimately she was forced to resign. You know what? We're talking about Butler, so let's stay on that. We've talked about how to.
I've corrected people on this before. When we say she was forced to resign, I don't think she was forced to resign by the events as they were occurring or by the embarrassment of that appearance before Congress. I think she resigned because her attorneys told her, listen, lady, you're better insulated as a private citizen than as a federal employee with a top secret clearance.
That's right, because she can't say no if she's subpoenaed and she has to testify.
And that's why she left.
Yeah, disgraceful. That's right. It's a very good point. That's right, because if she's still on the federal dime, that's part of your thing. You got to show up. Otherwise, you're going to get fired, and then you could lose what pension you got and everything else. And my understanding is she was very tight with Jill Biden. Is that right?
She was a Jill Biden protege. Jill Biden loved her because I'm sure she picked her up in the morning. And keep in mind, you're protecting Jill Biden. You weren't even with the vice president. This is ridiculous, right? She's the coffee picker upper for fake Doctor
Yeah,
Jill
yeah,
Biden,
Dr. Jill Biden. Yeah,
who got her that job at where she had Pepsi, you know, at some crazy salary she was
yeah,
making, with you know, and since everybody has seen her act, there was no way she was able to do that job adequately at Pepsi. That was just for optics reasons, right? So we
yeah,
know that job was nonsense, and they brought her back and said, "Hey, we're going to make you the director of the Secret Service," and she couldn't even grasp the gravity of what went on in Butler when the president got shot. And I know people will say, "Well, he was the former president." Listen, by the time Butler rolled around, it was pretty clear this guy was going to be the next president of the United States.
yeah.
So, yeah, in effect, you allowed the president of the United States to get shot, and you don't think that's worthy of addressing the entire nation? I would have been out there every hour on the hour
Yeah.
speaking about this incident, but
Yeah.
nobody had anything.
No, no press conference, nothing. She had to be hauled in front of Congress just to get an answer out of her, and it was such a debacle. She tried half-heartedly this nonsense about a sloped roof. She got laughed out of the room, and then of course she saw, that was it.
It was so embarrassing. You know, I was recently upstate New York, and I passed some state troopers in a Wawa getting a quick
Yeah,
coffee.
yeah,
And you know how cops give a glance to each other. They kind of know. So they're
yeah.
looking at me, short haircut. I got my polo shirt out. They
Yeah, they've
know.
probably seen you on the network, maybe, so yeah.
Who knows? So I kind of give him a glance. My wife says, "Hey, you going to say anything to him?" I go, "Absolutely not," because it's an embarrassment to tell somebody I'm a Secret Service agent at this point.
I listen. I would stick up for you. I would not go that far, but I think that these days people are educated, and
Yeah,
they know the difference. And there's all I say about the FBI a lot of times. I say it on the air. I say people say, yeah, banging on the FBI. I say, look, I work with too many good agents. And full
yeah,
disclosure, I fought tooth and nail with some of them, but
sure.
I didn't doubt their patriotism or their commitment to mission. I hated a lot of their bosses, who I thought were, very Machiavellian and were out for
I'm
their
with
own.
you. Yep.
But you and I both know what that's like. That happens anywhere, and of
Sure.
course it's going to happen in a paramilitary organization. I want to ask you about, but I want to go to Butler because,
Sure.
look, that was the thing where the dam broke. All
Right.
right. And thank God, Crooks missed. The service did not have the investigation into the attempt on his life. Okay. By definition, that's going to go to the FBI. So we got that. Okay. But the preamble of what happened
Yep.
and why it went sideways in terms of the preventative measures has been chewed over 100 times. We know there's been reports. Um, is it as simple as the fact that we know what happened? They didn't have them co-located. They weren't all on the same comms because they had frequency issues. But my question has always been, okay, I get that, but to me, that's not the disease. That's the symptom. Why was there not somebody with the ass to say 2, 3 days beforehand, this is a likely president that I'm dealing with here. I'm running the detail at the federal level. I'm the Secret Service SAC, I guess it was, or an ASAC from Pittsburgh.
Yep.
I got the ticket. You're all going to do what I say. I'm having a meeting tomorrow. Everybody get into the room because I was told in having this kind of a conversation, I forget who told me, that the Pittsburgh SAC, who realistically all this was under, is a good guy and was a career guy that didn't know what he was doing. So what the hell went wrong?
Well, let's start. I'll pick it up right from there. You're right. The Pittsburgh SAC is a good guy, right? I've seen him many times. He was very junior when I was still, I was the
Right.
UN site agent, right? I know exactly who he is. But being a good guy doesn't mean you're cut out to do this job. That guy was nowhere near capable of handling the magnitude of this type of visit, right?
Hmm.
Let's also keep in mind it wasn't just President Trump visiting this site and giving a speech. You also have to account for this 25,000 people that are showing up
In the
this
blazing heat. Yeah.
these people, that entire office was in so far over their heads. Had I shown up as a supervisor, and I would have, because there are certain things as a supervisor, and I've been the supervisor at some of these sites, I want to know, once I start realizing they can't answer any of these questions, that's when I'm calling back to DC or the Trump campaign and going, "Hey, we can't come here yet. We're just nowhere near prepared to handle this." And that
That's
didn't
right.
happen.
That's a good answer. See, I've never heard that where somebody gets out there to do the site survey. I've been in a million site surveys, done the
Yep.
walkthrough with the service, usually here in town, in walking up Broadway, there's going to be a parade and um, I've never seen like there was never a situation where the service guy had to say, none of the answers that I'm getting here are worthwhile. We got to call an audible. We got to change. I got to call DC. We got to stop this. We can't do it. I've never heard anybody else say what you just said,
Yep.
which is the service agent in charge, the SAC from Pittsburgh, should have put his foot in the door and stopped the event because they didn't have the resources or the organization.
Well, we did it during the Bush years, right? I was still with President Bush on September 11th. I was there a year before and up until 2003. And there were many things he wanted to do where we had to go to him and go, hey, Mr. President, you got to delay this. We're just not ready to take care of this yet. And the agent in charge of the president's detail would say to me, okay, Rich, you were just out there. Go in and tell him. And I'd go in and tell them. We'd sit with the campaign or the staff people and let them know we're just not ready yet. We'd get ourselves some more time so we can get our assets and resources in place. Somewhere along the line, that just went by the wayside, and the Secret Service leadership became so heavily compromised and so much in bed with the Biden administration that they completely left Trump hanging out to dry, as well as 25,000 people that were in Butler, and who knows how many other sites, because he was drawing huge crowds, regardless of what the media was reporting. I always took it as, if I was the site guy, my responsibility is not just to the protectee, but it's to all those people in that crowd as well.
Sure.
And if you look at that, you look at any of the photos from Butler, where's the the bathroom facilities? Where are the ambulances that are there in case somebody passes out? Where is it?
And by the way, you're right on, because they did. They had something like 60 heat exhaustion cases, and they were having trouble getting them out. The lanes were clogged. Even after, if you remember, even after the shooting attempt, as they rushed Donald Trump off stage, they had trouble getting the car out. They hadn't done. Of course, you have to have the exfiltration set up. You got to know where the nearest hospital is. You got to know all that stuff. They didn't seem to know any of it.
They didn't know any of it, and the most basic things that should have been done just weren't done. You talk about getting them off the stage to get them in the car. That's an armored vehicle. There needs to be somebody standing there with the keys, with that door open.
Sure.
And that's that guy's job. And where was that person? Nowhere to be found. If you look at the video, where's the driver? Nowhere to be found. What, did they just park and walk away? Which apparently is what happened, right?
Jesus.
Let alone, okay, where's the route? Who are all these people around the motorcade to begin with? That was so poorly prepared. He should never have been brought up onto that stage.
Yeah, the whole thing it was clearly a shit show. So, look, the long and short of it is the following. Under the Biden administration, it got very politicized. You and I both know that Joe Biden wasn't running anything. Okay, obviously he was compromised, and I made this point on the air relative to Lloyd Austin, because they were talking about how it was that Austin could go MIA for 2 weeks. Nobody knew. I said, listen, Austin's a military guy. He's used to giving and taking orders. And if his orders are keep my overhead informed of everything I do, he's going to do it. You and I both know that. That's what military guys do. He got used to the idea that nobody was looking for him. Nobody responds to my emails. I don't have to go brief POTUS every week like I should, or every morning. Like I used to have to go up and brief the commissioner every morning at, I forget what it was, 8 a.m. or something for like 4 or 5 years. And I had to have my act together. Otherwise, I was going to be launched to the far side of the moon. And you cannot do that kind of thing if you don't think that your boss cares. You're not going to do it. You're going to just say, well, you know what, the hell with it. Nobody cares above me, so what do I care? So Austin went MIA because he could, because that's just what happens. A big organization, any bureaucracy, it'll continue under its own weight until it's not capable of doing it. And that's what happened in Butler. There was no leadership. We had the Lloyd Austin thing. That should have been a clue that nobody's steering this ship. And then we had to have an attempt on Donald Trump's life before anybody realized nobody is steering this ship. The head of the Secret Service doesn't know her ass from her elbow, and it's all filtered down. That means that all of her proxies, as you and I both know, her deputy directors and assistant directors and all the other bullshit, all of these people she hired, they're there because she likes their face, or she knows their friends or their relatives, or she went to college with them, whatever nepotistic crap that goes on. And that's what you always got to guard against in an organization where the stakes are so high, like with the service. So that's my summary, I think, of what we're hearing from you, but now I want to move forward. I want to move forward now. We're shorthanded. All right. We've had a bad diminution of confidence and apparent expertise, because there was a point where there's nothing spookier than the Secret Service. It was like the Secret Service, secret is right in their name. It was like a very spooky agency. It's like, as a kid, that's what you wanted. You wanted to wear the glasses, all of that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. how do we right the ships? Rich Staropoli gets the director seat. All
Yep.
right. What are you going to do as far as training, recruitment to make it an A-list agency again? Go.
The first thing I do is I get rid of the entire senior leadership. That's every deputy assistant director, every assistant director.
Out the door.
And you say, well, how do you do that? Well, here's something else that people don't really realize and nobody's ever asked me about. All of these positions are members of the Senior Executive Service, the SES.
Yeah.
That means they've all completed requirements where the U.S. government has said, hey, your managerial skills
You're
are
fireable.
of such a high caliber, we can put you anywhere and you
That's
can
right.
manage anything. So you
Yeah.
know what I do? I transfer every one of their asses to the Mexican border.
Right.
And you know what? Hey, some of you fellas like the cold. You're going north to the Canadian border.
Yeah.
I've just cleaned house. And what have I accomplished there? I'm going to put people in there that are deserving of the spot. I want some seniority. I want all the people that have been to the Presidential Protective Division in these positions. Why is that? It's because they know how to deal with the most intricate and important things to successfully fulfill the mission of the Secret Service. What does it also do? That tells the rank and file that I'm taking this job seriously.
Right.
No more of this, I'm going to promote my friends or this kid's father.
That's right.
Get the hell out of here with all of that. That's what's killing the Secret Service. You know, you mentioned a little while ago about briefing the police commissioner. I'm sure after the commissioner said to you, hey, Paul, good job. You took a lot of pride in what you just did, and all that preparation and that hard work and the anxiety that went into that, that paid off in that simple phrase, Paul, good job. You've got to restore that back to the rank and file. And how do you do that? You need to make sure your management are people that are competent and capable and that have done the job and have stood in the shoes of the guys in the field offices. That will reinstill the confidence in the guys that are the rank and file in the field that they've got my back and they know what's going on. And then I stop this nonsensical hiring, all this DEI stuff, and I send my recruiters, because the Secret Service has never had a recruiting problem. Still doesn't.
No, never. Yeah. Yeah.
They have a hiring problem. They're hiring the wrong people.
Why still,
you're still hiring the wrong. Go to Fort Bragg or some of these other military installations and hire the people that have been veterans for 3, 4, 5, 10 deployments. I want a guy who physically can do the job and mentally has the mental well-being to do this job. I can't have people showing up with their wives because they want to get on a car plane and take nice trips overseas, which happened, right, about a month ago. I can't have an agent in charge of a major field office like Baltimore get booted out of the UK because he's drinking on duty and he's fallen down in a hotel, which happened and became public 2 weeks ago. I can't have my chief counsel take an unauthorized vehicle on a trip up to New Jersey from DC with credentials and probably a weapon that he wasn't authorized to carry and get arrested until the New Jersey State Police said, we don't want any part of this. And they kicked it back to the Newark field office. You can't have this. And if there aren't repercussions for the senior level of people and they're not held to that standard, you're never going to get the rank and file in your ship. You'll never right the ship. And
these are people who we are asking to take a bullet for the president. We're asking the highest level of duty from it. And really, it strikes me. It's amazing. It's hilarious. It's so much like the NYPD because same thing. You can get fired. You're not fired from the job, but you're fired from your position. Right. And so we're not going to go through the rigmarole of firing you because we don't have cause to do that. But guess what? They call it road therapy. You live in Staten Island, you transfer to the Bronx. There you go, pal. Right. And then you get the message real quick. But so does the rank and file, like you say, because it's based on the fact that, okay, you know what? They want to do the job. Now, let me ask you this. We're almost out of time, but I got to ask you this.
Sure.
As part of what you would do as Director Staropoli, would you get rid of the investigatory arm of the service? Because it always felt to me like that was kind of a ghost in the machine from the old days. To me, the service there is to protect the president, the vice president, the VIPs that merit the protection. But what about the investigatory arm? Does it stay with the service or does it move on?
No, I get rid of all those investigations.
You would,
right? Look, the Secret Service was created in the events leading up to the assassination of President Lincoln. It was one of the last things Lincoln did, right? Because the counterfeiting rings had permeated the North and the South. Like 40% of the currency in circulation coming out of the Civil War was counterfeit. So Lincoln and the Secretary of the Treasury formed the Secret Service.
Oh, is that where that came from? Because they do counterfeit. I've always known that. You got a counterfeit bill, call a service.
That's where that came from. And it wasn't until 1901, right after the assassination of President McKinley, who was the third sitting president assassinated in 47 years, that the Secret Service was formally and legally authorized to protect the President of the United States. But over the course of the years, that job has become more and more difficult as the president moves around more and more, and the threats have become even bigger.
Sure.
These investigations are done, and a lot of them are primarily electronic crimes and really complex financial fraud investigations.
Yeah, they're hard. That's the thing. They're tough cases.
But they're done by 10 other agencies. Let those guys handle that. So you say to me, well, what do you do with the agents when they're not doing protection? I'm pulling them out of the field offices, and I'm assigning them to all these task forces, and I'm assigning them to U.S. attorneys' offices and local police departments. Let them do all this other work so they can maintain that law enforcement
edge,
mentality. So they're ripping doors down. They're out executing warrants. They're handling investigations at a different level. So when I need them to handle protective responsibilities, I just pull them off these task forces. And I think that's a better, more current, modern use of these guys. Start shutting down all these field offices that they've got all over the country. What do we need offices in Idaho, in Nebraska, and what do we need an office in Newark for? If something's going on there, I'll send guys to Newark. I don't need to pay $3 million a year to rent office space and house guys that would never do half of what the guys in New York are doing, or Chicago. They've got to get current with the times, and that's part of it. It's allocating your people.
That's so interesting. I've never heard that either, that you actually don't need, especially if you shut down the investigatory arm, then you're not going to need all of these field offices that are scattered all over the place where the president doesn't go or the VP doesn't go. And if he does go, well, you send a team.
Right.
That's very, very insightful.
The counterfeit goes, listen, everybody's got one of these iPhones. If I have a bill that I think is counterfeit, scan it, and I'll send it to some app that's maintained by forensic examiners at headquarters. They'll tell you if the thing's counterfeit or not. This is the days of the Pony Express where I got to send two guys out on a horse for 3 days to go look at a counterfeit, $2 bill. This is ridiculous. It's just not current. They talk about these drones and all this other stuff. Hell, they can't even figure out what to do with these offices they've got. They've got 220 offices all over the country. What are these guys doing all day long? It's ridiculous.
Wow. That's really insightful, man. And, you'd save a ton of money. And you're 100% right, by the way. We would get really lame counterfeits, and you would, frankly, just to get rid of it, you would report it to the service.
Yeah.
But you knew that it was never going to be the only ones that really need to be investigated are really high-level ones, which generally come out of North Korea, nation states that manage to mimic the plates and all that. And you know what? That's not really the service's job. I agree with you. That should not be their primary remit. Now, let me ask you this, because one of the things that I would do, as we're almost out of time, but I got to ask you, man, while I got you, the training piece, because there was a lot of talk about the fact that, we got lucky with that shot that the sniper took in Butler. And whoever he is, God bless him, because one shot, boom, it was over. So God bless him. But that said, you can't rely on luck. And snipers are a key aspect. I mean, I've been up with them. You do like a New Year's Eve or something, you're doing a site survey to service as snipers in the hotels, on the roof, all of that stuff, along with the NYPD, ESU guys. So how ready are the service snipers to take on the kind of mission we're asking them to take on, which is to make a perfect kill shot from 200 yards in bad weather when someone with hostile intent is looking at the president?
Well, I'll tell you what, the counter snipers, I've always found that unit, right? And they're picked from the ranks of the uniform division. There are no agents that exist as counter snipers, right?
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
So if you want to be a counter sniper, you have to come from the rank and file of the uniform division. Most of those folks were military snipers.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the Secret Service snipers are the only civilian law enforcement entity in the U.S. that do not have to confirm anything with the chain of command. They have the perpetual green light to fire at will. These guys will shoot routinely out to 600 yards, 1,000 yards. They are really, really good at what they do. Sure. The problem the snipers have is, again, they are in extremely high demand. And according to that Inspector General report that came out a few days ago, they are down 78%. They never had 1,000 guys to begin with, and they work in two-man teams, by the way, as a spotter and a shooter. And you really need at least two teams for 360-degree coverage. So you need at least 4 guys.
Yeah.
By any estimate, there's only about maybe 20, 25 snipers left in the Secret Service. That's the problem. The problem isn't their abilities. because these guys are trained for years to be snipers. The problem is they don't have the numbers. So again, that speaks to management. One, you didn't see this coming. It's not like one day a bunch of these guys showed up and say we quit. This has been building up over time.
Go to the military, of course. Go to the military guys. They got the snipers, of course.
There you go. So that's where the director and this guy. Where is this guy? Right? This guy's like the wizard. You never see this guy.
Yeah, you don't see him. You're right. And you know what? That's a very good point, because he's the wizard behind the curtain in a period where the country wants to see the current guy. They want to be after Cheadle, who's the debacle. You want to see the current head of the service to reassure us, and that isn't forthcoming, because he should be out there saying we're doing this, and this is why it's better. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're totally right. There's no reason, given the last two events, Butler and Florida, and how high profile they were carried on live TV, that the director of the Secret Service can continue to get away with, well, we can't talk about this because it's a matter of national security, or that's the secret part of the Secret Service. Nonsense. The public demand and want to know, what the hell are you doing? What's going on here? Is this guy safe or not? And he's simply not up to the task of making that happen.
I mean, it's in a way, it's enlightening, but it's disheartening, because, you're putting your finger on Rich. This is an important conversation, man. I mean, because I got to tell you, and I'm embedded in all of this stuff. I read all the papers every day. I'm reading all kinds of national security blogs. I got sources. People call me. I was blissfully unaware. I took it as received wisdom that, okay, the new guy came in. He flushed out all the DEI nonsense. The service is up to speed. Donald Trump was almost killed at least once, likely more, and he's protected now. And it sounds like ignorance is bliss, and we're still relying a little bit on luck, and luck is not our method. I got to go to one last aspect of this that I think is so crucial for an agency like the service. I was very fortunate when I was working. I had the cyber unit under me.
Yep.
And I was able to, that it was post 9/11, and there were a lot of threats. ISIS was coming online, and I didn't hear a lot of no's when I asked for more tech. I had people pitching me software all the time. We had the money at the time. The city was flush. It was doing great. And we did everything we could to throw a gauntlet around the city. And we were not always successful, but most of the time we were. Now, that said, technology is going to be so key for what you guys do, because you got to scrape threats from online. You got to penetrate. And that's one of the things that I would really, urge the lawmakers and the directors to put a lot of muscularity into, would be to make sure that the service is embedded online, because the threats always seem to be online, at least from the kook factor, right? From the Ryan Roots and all of these guys. And I would say, get them online looking for threats, et cetera. But the technology, to me, the drones and all of that stuff is just so cutting edge. It's changing all the time. You got AI now and everything else. So it's a long way of saying, what are you hearing relative to the Secret Service making sure because the drones, as we all know, were a failure in Butler.
Right.
Where are they on technology? Where are they on drones? Where are they on cyber defenses? Are they up to speed, or are they dropping the ball there as well?
No, they're nowhere near up to speed, right? They simply don't have the internal expertise to even come close to getting up to speed, which is another.
Do they have a cyber unit? Is there a cyber unit in
they
in
have
the service?
This XSAP program, this electronic crime special agent program, but they're really there to work things like network intrusions, cellular cloning, internet hacking.
It's like an anti-hacking thing.
Right. So again, this speaks to what I said a little while ago. Pull these guys out of the field offices. What do you do where they're sitting drinking coffee all friggin' day? Yeah. Put them with some of these task forces, embed them with units like the NYPD cyber crimes, and you sit at the desk, and that's where you'll be able to get your threats and you'll get your intel stream and your flow of information. But the biggest thing, when the current director did give one interview to Laura Trump, he pointed out that they've purchased a number of tractor trailers, and on the side in big letters it says United States Secret Service, got the star, very pretty, and these are going to be mobile command posts. And I thought, hey, dummy, we don't need these mobile command posts. Everything was working fine, and not to mention, why would you paint U.S. Secret Service?
Yeah, why would you advertise what it is? It's a
so
target.
Now you're going to park this thing at some site like in Butler. So this kook on the roof with the rifle is going to go, you know what? I can't see the president, but I know I'm going to shoot up that truck. Sure. I don't know what's in there, but it looks pretty damn important.
Of course.
That's their idea of progress. You got to be kidding me. As far as the drone goes, let's talk about that. If you look at a picture of Butler, you'll notice in the foreground are two cellular towers. You can go online and get a map, cellular map of all the carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and so forth, and you can see the cell coverage. Yet these guys didn't even have the common sense to realize, hey, we got 25,000 people showing up. Everybody's probably got multiple devices. How do you think you're going to get that drone in the air with the connection? You're not. And
Right.
and that's at the most basic level. They're not prepared to handle any of this 21st century stuff. Just nowhere near it.
I got to tell you, Rich, this is really disheartening. And I'm going to put a fine point on it as we go out here because we've been going now 45 minutes, which is much longer than I expected to. But everything you're saying, excuse me, is so revelatory. But is it safe to say the following, and then I'm going to give you the last word?
Yep.
Secret Service is not where it needs to be. The Secret Service is not moving towards correcting the fact that it's not where it needs to be. It still has a major leadership problem. And as a result of that, the current president of the United States is not as safe. I don't want to be melodramatic, but the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, is who everybody knows there's a very large cadre of people that would like to see him dead. I'm sorry to say it, but it's just the truth. He is not as safe as he could or should be. I'll give it a last word.
No, I think that's accurate. And I have no issue saying that. I don't think the Secret Service has the capabilities to adequately provide the high level of security that they should afford the sitting president of the United States, right? They're just not at that point. And part of that problem is because, one, there's a definite lack of training. You've got people in positions they shouldn't be in. And you've got a director that makes no statement to say to me, hey, Rich, you're wrong. So everything that I've said to you over the course of this last 45 minutes or so, I can support all of that and I can back all of that. And until I'm proven otherwise, when we hear from this director who nobody knows where this guy is, I'll stand by all of that stuff.
Folks, you heard it from Rich Staropoli, 25 years, went over to DHS, has had all kinds of hats. And you heard it from him. You don't have to take it from me. Right now, there's still trouble there, and it has not been fixed, and nothing could be more crucial. And let me take it out of the partisan realm. This is not about Donald Trump. This is about any president going forward, Democrat, Republican, Independent. We got to know that our VIPs in Washington are safe, and nothing is 100%, but we got to at least know we have a professional organization doing the best that they can under the circumstances, and the resources aren't being wasted. And from what I hear from Rich, the resources are being wasted. Rich, thank you on behalf of the Ops Desk, me, and all of the audience. We hope you come back and talk to us again soon.
Anytime, sir. Thank you for having me.
Rich Staropoli, folks, the police right there. Thank you, folks. I am Paul Mauro, as ever, on the Ops Desk. We hope all of you are safe. We'll see you out at CrimeCon this weekend, and thank you for tuning in. Take care.